Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matt Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show, a show that helps you lead better, manage smarter, and build teams that perform and grow along with you. I'm your host, Matthew Haddock, and today we're talking about something that every leader, from team leaders to site directors, has faced at some point in their career. That moment in a meeting or during a decision when you have something valuable to say, but you don't. You pause, you hesitate, you think, maybe it's not my place. Maybe I'll sound stupid, maybe. Everyone else knows more than me. Well, let me tell you, you're not alone. And today's episode, it's all about why we should speak up as a leader and how to build confidence in your voice. And of course, how to make sure you are heard and respected in business. Because here's the truth, if you don't speak up, you can't lead. So grab a brew, settle in, and let's get into the idea of how you should speak up as a leader, find your confidence, and find your voice. So let's start with that real question. Why do so many leaders, so many managers, good, capable people who know their stuff, why do they stay quiet, very quiet like a mouse? I've seen it 100 times in a meeting. A bright manager, full of ideas, who one-to-one will talk forever, who's great in the canteen with everyone, but he stays silent, while others dominate the conversation, and sometimes them others don't really know what they're talking about. But this one girl and guy just quietly sits there. And it's not because they don't care. It's not down to the fact that they just couldn't give a monkeys about what they do. It's down to the way that they're wired, and maybe the way that the culture around them works. So let's have a look at 3 things why you would find people being quiet in these situations. First one, it's the obvious one. It's the fear of being wrong. That little voice that says, what's your idea? Why are you saying this? You are stupid, you are stupid, you are stupid. And our brain is amazing. And I've said it a few times on different casts. An amazing piece of equipment, a brilliant thing. But it's always been bred to pick up things. And if it's from being a kid or through your adolescence, if people are always quiet. I remember being at school and I'm the one who would ask the questions, but many people wouldn't. You'd sit in a maths lesson and you could tell none of the people in there really understood. And the teachers weren't bad people. I'm not slagging them off. But they'd just go on and plough on with what they had to get through. And I'd always put my hand up and go, hey, look, I don't understand this. Can you explain that again? Most of the time, the teachers were great. There was some others who were like, oh, God, why do I have to say it again? They probably didn't care much. They were just getting the pay packet and wanting to get out of there. But I knew that loads of people around me were thinking the same. Because if I'm thinking it, I'd say it. But there's a fear of being wrong. When you used to stand up and read out loud, they used to make people stand up and read out loud. And a friend of mine, really good friend of mine, still to this day, not diagnosed, but extremely dyslexic. And he was forced to stand up and read. And it must have been the most nerve-wracking thing, because of course you wouldn't be able to do that. So there's a fear of being wrong. So that's the first reason why people don't speak up. Second one, this old one, this imposter syndrome. Thinking everyone else around you in that table is smarter. And you do get that. You get the feeling that everyone in there must be smarter than me. That little voice inside you, the little devil on your shoulder going, oh, you stupid you. What do you know? Everyone here is a lot smarter than you. Why would they want to hear your voice? And that syndrome, that imposter syndrome, even if you're a senior position, I've been well up in organisations. I've been at site director level. And I still get that little voice going, you don't know anything, you don't know anything. Now, I've got to a point where I can blank that out and actually openly admit I don't know everything, guys. But I know some people around this table do. So if you want to speak up, let's speak up now. I know the quiet ones in the room are here, but you are very clever. Tell me your thoughts. And you can be a conduit to help that imposter syndrome disappear for others. Third one on my list, lack of confidence. Not in their ideas themselves, but in how they communicate. Some people feel that they're not good at being a communicator. Some people say, I could never stand up in front of a room of people and talk. They lack that confidence. But here's the thing. If you're in that room, if you're being given that seat, there's a reason. If you're in that, again, if you are in that room and you have got a seat, there's a reason you're there. You bring a perspective that no one else does. You have not lived the same as anyone else. You do not know or see things the other way. And leadership isn't about knowing everything. Just mention that, isn't it? It's about contributing. It's about challenging. It's about helping your team think better together. So let me share another quick story with you. About a few years ago, I was in a boardroom reviewing an operations efficiency project, and that's what I do. I do love that. And there was a director there was a financial lead, there was an engineer. They were all big hitters, And, at the time, I was a project lead, but I was one of the junior managers. So, you had to make sure that you were giving enough time for everyone to speak, and you didn't want these big directors to take it down a different one. But one of the junior managers who were in the meeting had spotted something in the data that I didn't quite add up, and I hadn't seen it. But he didn't say anything. And afterwards he came up and said, just let you tell you, Matt, I thought you might be wrong on this. Oh, guess what? He were right. And if he'd have pointed it out, I would not have been offended. But I could see he was really embarrassed that he had to bring it up. His point would have been to save that business thousands of wasted time if he hadn't have said, what if the worst case in that story, if he hadn't come and spoke to me after? If he'd just let it go? That was remember, silence can sometimes cost more than the mistake. So it was good that he could speak to me. I did coach that individual about having to speak up in the meetings. I also checked my work more, so I learned, and then I got it. I used to get it read through by others. Peer group review, maybe another good thing to look at when you're presenting, because there's sometimes you don't know everything and you don't see your own mistakes. That's a big one. So let's go on to the next bit: the power of speaking up. So if we flip it round, what happens when you do speak up? Well, there's three big things. First, you are going to gain visibility. When you speak up thoughtfully, people see your value. They see that you are engaging and they're thinking, okay, this is good. They can see you're a critical thinker. You become part of the solution. You're not just a bystander. Now, of course, there is certain people who will talk forever and actually know nothing. And a lot of those people go far in business, unfortunately. I don't know if it's because people get bored of hearing the voice and move them up, or they just have a way of hypnotising people. But you're not that. You would gain visibility by saying the right things at the right time. Think it through. Don't be ashamed if you're wrong to say, and someone counter-argues. You go, oh, yeah, actually, I haven't seen it that way. I can see your point. But be visible. And this is a big thing. You speaking up makes you visible. Secondly, it will build your confidence. Confidence isn't built by reading a book about it or listening to a podcast. It's about your actions. The more you speak up, the more confident you will become. Like anything in the world, it's like a muscle. And if you go training, if you're in your gym or you're running or you're cycling, the more you exercise that muscle, the more it strengthens it. So the more you speak up, the more the confidence comes. And the more stuff you're getting right and people are feeding back, the more confident you are in speaking. Don't become arrogant. There's a difference between confidence and arrogance. But the more you do it, the more confident you'll get. And third one, you help others. When you speak up, as I said, when I was in my maths class all them years ago, you give others permission to speak. By saying the stupid question, and some people say there is nothing but stupid questions, there is, but most of the time there isn't in business, let's be fair. But your courage can open that door for the quieter team members. And as a leader, as I said, you should help those people who are not saying much share, actually bring them into it, because there's a lot of people in that room who'll know a lot and they'll sit there. So that's a good action from a leader. So don't think by speaking up, you're self-promoting. Think of it, you are team promoting. You're making sure you create better conversations for that team and ultimately have success. So how to become heard? So this is the nitty-gritty of it, without being too loud. There is some people who are very, very confident. I am one of those, and I would go into a room and speak to anyone. But of course, that can be too bright, and you can shine too much. Therefore, others can't get a look in. But what do you do? How do you become heard and not be too loud? Well, now let's talk about that. That practical side. How do you make sure your voice is going to be heard? Because speaking up doesn't mean shouting over people. It doesn't mean that you're going to be the person who's bolstering and, I'm the one, look at me. No, it's about clarity, it's about timing, it's about delivering. And here's a few tips to look at that. Best 5 tips I could come up with. If you're going to go into a meeting and you're prepared for it, which most people you are, prepare yourself, prepare your points. Before the meeting or the discussion, jot down the key things you want to raise. I've done this, have a book and just put them down so you've got them. That little bit of prep gives you that mental anchor to come back to. If you watch politicians, are very good at this. They'll come back to those points, either good or bad, that they're trying to sell. If it's something good, they'll tell you over and over again the 5 things they've improved or the 3 things they've improved. If it's on the other side of the argument, they're saying how much money's been spent or what's been wasted or what's gone wrong. But they've wrote those down before, and they know that some of them are good off the hoof. Some are really good, but a lot of them, they'll write it down. It gives you the mental anchors and it makes you sound confident and concise, even when you're nervous, because you've got those points down that you're going to get to and you can tick them off as you go. Second one on this list, pick your moment. Listen first, and this is a really big thing. Listen to what's being said. Not just listen so you can speak, but listen properly. And then you get the time, make it in so that you don't jump in too early or too late, meaning that you miss your point, but you've got to listen and then get the right moment. And when you do speak, connect your comment to what's already been said. That shows you're engaged and listening. So you might say, let me build on what's just been said there. I can see the point of going down that angle, but what we really need to do now is build on this. And these are the areas. You don't want to sound too like a politician, but you want to look that you're picking your moment. Third one on the list, speak with a purpose. Use strong, simple language. Instead of, I might be wrong, but try, I've noticed something that might improve this. Look at that for a shift. These small shifts, they can sort of make sure that you are precise and you come over as confident. So you know the people are listening and they think, okay, this guy knows what he's talking, girl knows what he's talking about. Back it with evidence or experience. This is something people miss all the time. It's the worst thing you can sort of say. We know you've got gut feelings, but I feel I need to do this. I've got a gut feeling. Okay, if you're the entrepreneur who owns the business, then that's great. But if you're working in a normal sort of organisation, you'll need some data, some evidence and some experience. If you've seen something work on the shop floor or in your team, say so. You don't have to be the expert. You just have to show that you can point them to show what real world you understand and how it can improve. And the last point is follow up. If your idea doesn't get picked in that room, don't give up on it. Drop a quick note after the meeting or catch up with the person leading it and say, hey, I just wanted to expand on my thoughts earlier. And of course, that's a way of getting it over. Not to argue, not to be egotistic and not to say, you've ignored me, but just make sure that they have got the idea, because it can get lost, especially in longer meetings when there's lots of ideas falling around and people are not great at making notes. They could get lost. So just go around, follow it up, make sure it's there. Okay, this bit, you're not stupid. Of course, you're not stupid, and I don't really have to say that. You're a valuable member of that team. But let's tackle that voice in your head again. Don't say it. You're going to sound stupid. that little devil. Every leader, from the top ones right the way through, have it. They've all had that moment where you sat there and you think, oh no, yeah, they're going to think this of me. But here's the truth, right? You're not stupid. You're not less clever than anyone in that room. You're just thinking differently. And that's another way of explaining it to people is I see it a different way. This is because you are going to be clear when you're delivering it. You might not be academic. You might not have the big degree, but that don't matter because you're going to explain from your experience, your practical examples, your creativity. Of course, there is smart people who've been to university and done it, but also a lot of them have done it through experience and been there on the shop floor, in the boardrooms doing it. So the best teams I've worked with was where we had one full of most qualified people, but there's ones who have also had people who've come and challenged from other perspectives, and that really gave value to that room. If you're listening to this podcast, you care about leading better, and you're already putting in steps ahead of others. So next time you're in a meeting and you feel that hesitation, that pause, take a breath and remind yourself, I've earned this place at this table and my views matter. What about the quiet leader? That can be an advantage. Let's talk about that quiet leader out there. The ones who prefer to listen over talking. That's not weakness. In fact, it can be a huge strength for you if you use it right. Quiet leaders often see the bigger picture. They notice things that others miss because others are talking about the detail and getting things done now and then. But to make that count, you've got to make sure you have insight that reaches the group. So here's a trick to do that. If you find it hard to jump in during a meeting, set yourself a small goal. I'll contribute at least once. Doesn't have to be groundbreaking, amazing statements. It just has to be that once. I agree that this is this, or I think this is the right thing to do, but have we thought about this? Look at a different line. Try to do that when you do it. So you're the quiet leader. Simple, but it starts to build that a persuasion that you know what you're talking about. And over time, you'll get more confidence the smaller contributions you make, and they all add up. People start to look at you for input. I remember a great leader. He never said a lot. Very quiet guy. Would sit there, think it through. You could be in a meeting for, say a meeting less than an hour and a half. You might not hear anything for, an hour 20. But then when he comes and he started speaking, he'd listened, he'd taken on board, he'd built, and he would be wow. Because he had that time, that way. He became known as someone who could add value when they speak. Because a lot of time we speak with no value. There's the world full of people called influencers. They're not really influencing anything, are they? They're just talking well and have got a good camera and a platform. But really, in real time, in a real business sense, the people who can contribute and really add value are someone that you want to be in your team. So look for the quiet leaders, because that can be an advantage. Now, there's another truth when it comes to being in a group. You want to be competitive in a way, but you also want to have competence. So you need to make sure that when you are in an area where you are an expert, you have taken the time to expand and be competent, and make sure that when you are being competent, that you are giving the people the trust that you know what you're talking about. So when you are speaking in a situation where you've got confidence and you know that you're competent, it's easy for you to speak. But be careful. Remember what I said earlier. Don't be the loudest in the room and you know everything, because even though you might be the competentest person there and you are sharing, don't make sure that you don't get to a point where you own it, because you will never know 100% of everything. There's always going to be a percentage of things that you won't know, or things around you have changed. So just be careful when you are confident and you are competent, that you don't become too much of a bright light and overdo it. So that's just a warning point in it. In that. Now let's bring it all together. So let's wrap it up. If you take one thing away from today's episode, make it this: speaking up is not about ego; it's about impact. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most effective. You just need to show up, prepare, and contribute. Remember, there's a reason that you're there. Your experience has added value, and silence will help no one. Be confident in your own voice, but remember, always take a step back, listen first, and say it right. But because your perspectives might help, everyone else needs to see how clear you are. The next time that little voice says, stay quiet, tell it, not today, because great leaders don't wait to be invited to speak. They step forward and they add value. And back to that, I would love you to add value, speak up, and send me an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com, because I'd love to hear what you thought of the show and any other topics you'd like me to discuss in the future. Well, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful, and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.